talk to me nice. Talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes. Don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy.
Do you really want to know what it takes to be super successful in your sales career and, of course, earn ridiculous revenue? Well, you want to pay close attention because this sales career panel, I promise you, will give you the tips and tools to be able to do that. Unquestionable, inspirational, unbelievable success in sales as a woman of color is the name of this panel, and you want to tune in and pay attention. Now, we have an illustrious panel of sales professionals who look like me and who look like you, who are going to give you their secrets. They're going to really share with you what it took to soar in their sales career. Up first on this amazing panel, we have Ayanna Campbell, and Ayanna is the Regional Vice President at Oracle. Addition to that, we have Tanisha Sharp. She's the sales manager and key accounts manager at Pinterest. In addition to that, we have Vanessa Smith. Her role is a senior vice president of global go-to-market at ServiceNow. And last but certainly not least, we have Shantae Baker. She is the regional vice president of commercial sales and manufacturing at Salesforce. So with that being said, pull up, pay attention, get your pen and paper ready. I'm going to pass the mic over to Tanisha Sharp, who's going to get the panel started.
Guys, I'm so excited to meet you, to be here together. Ayanna, Shantae, and Vanessa. I'm hoping that our conversation together and our collective experiences will help inspire all of the women of color in sales who are tuning in. So why don't we just get started? Sound good? All right, from the top, what does being a woman of color in a sales leadership role mean to you?
I guess I can jump in first. So first, I'm a sales leader within ServiceNow. It's about a $5 billion workflow automation company based in California. I'm just hitting my 1-year anniversary today after 16 years in various roles, including but not exclusive to sales at SAP. But what does it mean to be a woman in color in sales leadership? I think first and foremost, as we all know, it means you're going to be unique. And to some extent, the higher you go in the ranks in terms of sales leadership, sometimes you can almost be a unicorn. I think you can't get more than a few minutes into panels like these before you talk about being the only in the room. And I can say, given our duality of being Black and being women, the chances that you're in a room selling at those highest levels, that you've got more than one other person that looks like you is really, really slim. The good news is just over my career, I see that changing. In fact, one of the key sales executives who was here at ServiceNow before me is a Black woman. And so I'd say over the last kind of 2 to 3 years, I see a shift and seeing more people of color, women of color, Black women in sales leadership roles, which is awesome. And I think it's because we need to reflect the customers that we're selling to. The second thing is, look, you can look at being the only as a challenge or as an opportunity. I think we all know the challenge of being the only. You have that spotlight on you. People are having an expectation or preconceived notions of why you're there. Should you be there? What are you going to sound like when you speak up? So I think, my advice to folks is take that feeling of being the only as an opportunity as opposed to a challenge. Because you know what? When you talk, they're going to listen in extra hard. So you have that opportunity to really command the stage. And then last but not least, from a woman of color in sales leadership, being in sales, results are really objective. How many girlfriends do we have who are in corporate America, who are in marketing or HR or finance? And, they might have KPIs and objectives, but there's also a lot of subjectivity in terms of your work performance. One of the things that I've liked best about sales is the numbers are the numbers. So if you can knock it out of the park in terms of meeting your KPIs from a sales perspective, you've created a much bigger platform for you to sell that next opportunity, that next role, and get what you need to be successful in your organization.
Absolutely. One of the things I love that you said there, I have found to be incredibly true, which is the greater your sales, the greater your influence. When you are absolutely bring in from a revenue perspective, people can't help but pay attention. And to build off of one of the things that you said about people leaning in, what I have found to be super helpful is always have a strong point of view, always give them a reason to be leaning in versus just sort of nodding and smiling and being agreeable for what the other folks are saying.
Absolutely.
Yep. I was going to answer along the same lines of it being very positive. To me, it means being a voice in a space where we've once felt voiceless. It's creating opportunities for us to have a platform to speak up about some of the experiences that we've had. But I think above all else, it means to be an inspiration and a motivation to those that are coming behind us. There are so many people in our communities who don't look at this as even a potential career for them. They think that the respectable career in corporate America is a lawyer or a doctor or something along those lines. You know, I had some of those pressures in my own household, and I sit back and I've had a far more lucrative 5 years than I would have if I would have gone to medical school. It would have taken me years to be at where I am now financially. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to educate people, not only about sales, but also particularly about tech sales and the doors that are, the opportunities that are available to them, the doors that could potentially open to them, because it's not just about sales in the sense of selling a product. It's also about really understanding who you are and learning how to sell yourself.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I can just chime in and add a little bit. 100% agree with Vanessa and Shantae. And just also one other thing from my perspective, I maybe underestimated the power of representation prior to taking on a sales leadership position, and not even just internally amongst peers or those others who maybe look up to those of us in leadership for opportunities in the future, but also externally, right? And even I would go as far as to saying even amongst my customer base. I didn't expect the amount of feedback I would get from customers about how much the representation means to them. And then also the diversity of thought, right? Being able to bring the different ideas and perspective that I can come to the table with based on my background and how it can really help add hardcore business value, you know, and drive results for their business, not just look good, right? So that's just been something that's been really motivating for me and exciting to see. And I welcome engaging and mentoring because of that opportunity to be a representative.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. So many gems being dropped in this first question alone. I'm going to keep it moving to a question that I imagine you guys have heard before, but what do challenges look like as women of color in sales? What types of challenges are you presented with, and what are some of the ways that you sort of rise above them? I'm going to go around the other way. I'm going to start with Ayanna this time.
Sure. So there are various challenges, right? I mean, when I sell for Oracle, so I sell software, cloud software specifically within our marketing subset. So I'm selling to the C-suite, the marketing C-suite, executive leadership. And, you know, we're selling 7-figure investments in software across global complex enterprise organizations, right? So that in of itself is not a simple feat, right? And it definitely takes a village, and it takes engagement from a variety of resources across really large organizations and matrices within the organization to be able to execute on that. And then also, someone previously mentioned, this is 100% revenue generating role. So the pressure is always on to generate revenue. You know, just came out of a call where a manager's saying, where's the pipeline? Where's the pipeline, right? So constantly trying to manage that amongst my team, continue to motivate, not too far to the point where you're discouraging, right? But also keep people encouraged and also remind people of why they love sales. I always try to tap into why I started this job. I have a genuine passion and an itch just to chase, right? It's the hunt, right? I never wanted the territory that was just installs. I always wanted an opportunity to hunt because I was so passionate about that and trying to motivate others to really kind of get in the weeds and just enjoy the chase, the thrill of the chase once again. But it's something, you know, there are a variety of ways in which we rise above it, right? I try to be empathetic with my team. I try to understand what motivates each and every one of them individually. Not everyone is motivated by the same things. Not everyone has the same goals. And then I try to figure out how I can help them reach their own individual goals and put together action plans that we can realistically execute on. But those are a few of the challenges I've experienced.
Absolutely. And I love how you're quite clear on the ways that you approach keeping your team motivated, keeping them aware of the North Star. Quite literally, I was just telling my team before we jumped on, you know, sometimes we have to get scrappy. That's just the name of the game. And so absolutely couldn't agree more with what you were saying. How about now we go to Shantae?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Ayana just said. Our roles are probably very similar. I'm a regional vice president at Salesforce, and we have similar challenges. For us, and every role, I should just say, is going to have its own specific set of challenges. It depends on, you know, what you're selling, where you're selling. Sometimes it's geographical. Sometimes it's things like last year that are totally out of our control, like COVID, where everybody's pivoting. Some people are a little bit better positioned to pivot faster than others, and you have to adjust to that. I'm going to keep it broad. I would say some of the most challenging things in my eyes are there are so many things that are not under your control that you are expected to be able to kind of control for. And so we talked about some of the numbers. Forecasting is one of the highest measures of successful leadership. And I struggled with that early on. How do you read a territory that you're not familiar with in these years where we don't know right from left, right? Last year was a huge anomaly. And you cannot make anybody do anything, say anything. So how do you manage that with also making sure that you deliver? You have an obligation to deliver to the business, right? So, but really balancing that. I think for some salespeople as well, their identities are too tied to whether or not things are going well in their jobs. And being able to really separate that, you know, person from the role, I think is highly, highly significant and very important, because if you throw your entire life into this job and everything predicates on whether or not things are going well for you, well, it's really difficult to dig yourself out of that. And the best sales reps are the most resilient, right? So I try to manage to that. When you see people going into a rough spot, to Ayana's point, how I need to remind them who they are, right? I need to remind them why they're here. And so what I like to do is I actually set goals. We set goals together. I ask them what they are, personal goals, something they're going to do for themselves. And then we celebrate those at the end of the month when they hit them. Just
That's
always
beautiful.
tracking some kind of progress. But sales in general is challenging, but it's fun. I think it's works really well for people who are driven by a challenge and who like to solve problems. If you like either of those, you will excel, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that either, but we're also in a sea of sellers. So of course, we're going to be aligned there. I'm so curious, just going back to what you said, because I think it was really special about specifically separating yourself from your role. Let's say you don't have a manager who actively pushes you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for the individual? What types of things should they be celebrating? With my team, I notice when I ask them what personal things you want to achieve, it's always still some tertiary aspect of the role. So how do you do it?
Yeah. So I had a lot of people the first time I asked last quarter who were like, oh, if I get this, I'm going to take my kids to Disneyland. I'm like, cool. Love that you're thinking of your family. You should, but that's not for you. What are you specifically? What do you need? Is it a day off? Is it a week off? Right? Like, what's going to help you recharge? And I just started asking some of those probing questions. So for one person, it was, you know what? I'm going to schedule a golf outing with my friends because I haven't done it in years, right? Since my kids have been born. I'm like, great, cool. How do we get you there? And he got there and we did it and it was excellent. So it's more about getting to the person. You know, that golf outing had nothing to do with work, everything to do with him creating space for himself outside of work and something that he enjoyed and that brought him energy. That's what I was getting after.
I absolutely love that. And one of my takeaways hearing you articulate it in that way is that that's something we can do for ourselves. We just need to be intentional about
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. Vanessa, I would love for you to weigh in.
Sure. I want to build on a point that Shantae made. And the question was, what's the biggest challenge or some of the biggest challenges that you faced? We got to talk a little bit more about being a seller in the middle of a pandemic. I think we're all in high-tech sales. So the good news, right, is frankly, digital transformation has accelerated because of the pandemic. And that's been probably an unexpected tailwind that we faced in the business. We were already used to remote work. Our customers that we sell to, for the most part, were able and capable after some time to be able to get back, whether they were remote or in person. And so from a business perspective, I think we've been able to show that resilience, especially in our markets, to be able to continue to sell. But there's the whole self part of it and the whole self of the pandemic. Many of our sellers or our teams, they are in sales because maybe there's some aspect of their personality that they get energy from being in person, from selling in person, demoing in person, creating relationships because you're not just interfacing over the camera, but you're sitting next to someone, you're breaking bread together, you're getting to know them on a different level than a vendor customer relationship. And so I think for me as a sales leader, it's been a very interesting challenge to keep that motivation up while those things are not the same. In addition, the second challenge that I'll talk a little bit about is just being in a high growth environment. Shantae mentioned this, of all the careers she could have chosen, doctor, lawyer, this has been a much more lucrative career. And a lot of folks in our community might not appreciate that. You know, we want our children to be the doctors and the lawyers, and sales doesn't necessarily always have that prestige. The great news is if you've gotten into tech in the last 10 to 15 years, that was a really good career choice. That being said, the pressure to continue to drive in a high growth environment, it just continues to ratchet up. And I'm looking at everybody's faces here. You can be the hero of Q1 or Q2 or Q3. As soon as that calendar changes to the first day of the next quarter, everything's wiped out. Maybe there's a little bit of a halo effect, you know, for a couple weeks or whatever, but, you know, as quick as you're a winner, you can easily be on the other side of the coin. So I think, you know, dealing with that in a pandemic, high growth, high pressure, that's just a continued challenge. The great thing about sellers is I think a lot of us strive and thrive in those areas of challenge. And my final point will be just the importance of leadership. Yes, we're in sales, but leadership is leadership. Whether you're a teacher and you're leading students, you're in our industry and you're leading reps or another part of the business. One of the things I try to keep focus on is that you're leading people in a way that you need to motivate them in a very holistic approach. And those core leadership skills, listening, motivating, supporting, providing a foundation and platform for success is something I always, you know, take myself back to as well.
Absolutely. A three-parter of gems dropped. I do want to go back to one of the things you mentioned about Again, this is sort of tailoring your approach to leadership by individual. For those folks who are extroverts, who thrive being in person with folks, how do you keep them motivated beyond the dollars and cents of the job?
I think many of us who've been in the business for a while just have a passion for delivering outcomes and customer success, especially in our industry. We know when that renewal comes up every 3 years, if they haven't adopted and used your solutions and gotten the value that you put forth during the sales process, it's going to be a really tough discussion. So for those extroverted folks that we have on the team that are really struggling a little bit in this new environment, in terms of motivation, really focusing on those outcomes that you're driving for the customer, and how do you celebrate the work that you've done in terms of really helping, whether it's your champion that you sold to be successful, whether it's the company more holistically reaching a goal. I think I'm trying to focus my team on that as much as the upfront piece of taking down that first sale or doing that first business, is how do we continually focus on customer success and business outcomes?
Absolutely. And I think that's a theme for all of our roles. I don't work in software sales and in tech. I work in digital advertising, but it's that consumer centric piece and finding a way to, connect with them and build a relationship, even though you're remote. We just have to do it by appointment more and more often.
I will say, you all know we had a little bit of time during the summer where we were all traveling again. And I will say we were on top of it, my team, to get in that 6 weeks where everybody felt like, okay, it's okay to be in person. We got it in. Now we're back on the other side. We're like, oh, we better do this remote. So it's also being a little bit opportunistic and taking advantage when the team's comfortable to make those time to get together. And also my team's distributed across the world, actually, and doing small things with 3 or 4 people in the same city, getting together outdoors for a meal. I've had team members to host barbecues on their back porch, on their patio, so that you don't just wait for that perfect moment to have an in-person QBR or leadership team meeting, which you never know you're really going to be able to do or not.
I absolutely love it. We just have to be thinking outside of the box in terms of keeping things personal, whether it's with our team or with our clients. Question that I hear a lot in the industry, and I'm very interested to hear your individual takes. I'm going to start with Shantae here. How do you show up authentically as a woman of color, given you're in these spaces where there aren't very many people, if any, that look like you or have a similar journey as you?
Yeah, I would say, to be honest with you, I have never felt like I couldn't be my authentic self. I don't know if it's just the way that I was raised or what, but I've never walked into a room and felt like I had to change who I was to fit in there. And if I did, I'd probably walk out because that's not my style. No, honestly, I'm not going to change who I am to make other people feel comfortable. I change my hair, I change my nails, I change my makeup. If things aren't, suitable for a Black woman, I will say, like, hey, yeah, that's not going to work on my skin or something like that. I have no problem with that. I'm very proud of who I am. And I own the flexibility and the beauty of what it means to be a Black woman. That means that bright colors look great on me. That means that I can wear my hair curly or in braids or straight if I want to. It means that I can wear my nails the way that I want to. And none of that should impact whether or not I could do my job, so long as I'm showing up and delivering. And that's what I do consistently. So to, I think, Vanessa's point earlier, my numbers speak for themselves. And if there are any problems outside of that, happy to talk to somebody about it. But I've never had any of those issues. Now, what I do want to say, though, is that I do think that that is something that could be a bit unique for me. And I don't want to sugarcoat the fact that there are a lot of people who do not feel this level of comfort in these spaces. Yeah. And for those people, I would tell them, one, you should not feel that you need to change yourself to fit into a space. The same way that you don't understand these people's environment, they don't understand yours.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that they're going to bridge that gap is through a conversation where both sides are willing to listen. And if you have that level of comfort within your team and you want to do that, I'd say I would encourage people to have those conversations. But if you don't, then I would advise finding a place that you can, because I think it's really important for us to all be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that don't change overnight. Sometimes I feel it more in a classism way than a racism way. But I just remind myself that, like, whatever, I'm here and I deserve to be here. All the work that I've put in has gotten me here. That's why I'm here, sitting at the same table as these people. And that's what I think you inherently have to believe.
Well, listen, I feel that strength and that confidence. And if there's anybody watching this, I hope they just find a way to channel that. They probably know they have it on the inside. It's okay to put it on the outside. Just wear it. Vanessa,
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts there.
So I love Shantae's response. I will say that I haven't always felt like I could be my authentic self, though. So in my experience, and especially when the next generation of future women of color leaders, I just remind folks there's a reason why probably most of our moms told us straighten your hair, look this way when you're going to the interview, etc. I think it's phenomenal, especially the last 18 to 24 months, how that narrative has shifted so significantly. That being said, as long as you're getting a paycheck from somebody else, I think a healthy appreciation for the culture that you're operating in is super important. And I'll just give a real example. When I mentioned that this is my 1-year anniversary on a new job after being somewhere else for 16 years. And right before my lead up taking this job, they're like, Vanessa, you need to go get your professional headshots done. And I remember thinking many, many weeks before this appointment on how I was going to wear my hair. And today I've got it the way I usually wear my hair almost every day. But other days, just like Shantae mentioned, I wear it straight, I wear a ponytail, whatever. The spirit moves me and I have no problems going any direction. That being said, that headshot of you is the impression people have before they meet you on that Zoom on your first day of the job. And being my authentic self, I understood the culture there. The culture at ServiceNow is a little different than the culture I came from. I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear my hair just like this in my headshot so that I am setting the expectation that this is naturally me. Of course, when I come in and my hair is straight, I get your hair looks so nice, right? When I wear it straight, I set the expectation that this is authentically me. And so there's a little bit of cultural aspect that I knew that this was acceptable. I didn't think twice about it, but I wanted to set even more of a statement by doing that as part of my headshot. The second thing that I'll say, and going back to the culture comment that I made, you need to set the table for people coming behind you. And that's why I love Shantae's response so much. Even once you realize how to be your authentic self, there's someone who's 10 years your junior, 15 years your junior, who doesn't have that or may not have that confidence yet. So what I've tried to do is use the platform that I do have a little bit educationally. So I'll just give, again, one last example. I was in my first QBR, quarterly business review, with my leadership team, and it happened to be during the month of February, which of course is Black History Month. So I was working on my QBR presentation. Of course, we had the template, but I knew culturally I could go off script a little bit, but not too much. Literally the night before my QBR, I was like, gosh, this presentation's boring. And Black History Month, I'm the only Black person who's going to be on this Zoom call. How can I mix it up? So I integrated in a Black History Month quiz into my QBR presentation. And I posed to all my peers on the team 3 questions. I won't go through all of them, but one of them was, how many Black CEOs are there in the Fortune 500? What sorority is our new vice president in? And then I had some third question that I can't remember. Oh, it was about hair, and it was about the Crown Act. And I can't tell you, I don't think anybody listened to actually my QBR deck, but those three topics, Black hair, Black CEOs, and sororities, was something nobody on that call had ever thought about. And I got so many calls after that QBR about those three questions that I integrated in more so than I did about the business. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but leverage your platform, right, as a way to educate folks. And that was really well received. And that was me being authentically me.
Absolutely. And what I love the most out of all the wonderful words you said was setting the table for the next one. I think that's something that maybe women of color who are starting in the industry don't realize that we are actively doing, but that is something that is very much a part of this generation. And I encourage the women who are new to continue that legacy. All right, Ayana, how about you?
Yeah. When I was thinking about this question, I was like, how do I want to approach this question? I think for me, I probably can think of moments in my past in my career where I haven't been 100% comfortable being my authentic self. And it took time. It took, engaging with mentors, and support from leaders to kind of help me grow to that point where I'm comfortable now. But I now have the perspective that I'm doing myself as well as many others a disservice if I don't bring my authentic self to work every day. And not just even in my work environment, but in all spaces of my life, right? I also firmly believe that someone's motivation or opportunity or inspiration is connected to me being authentic. And so if I hold back, someone may not see or hear or experience something that they need to feel motivated, right? So I feel a personal responsibility to show up as my authentic self every day. And I also think it's a part of my personal brand. And I know we haven't tapped on that yet, but it is who I am, right? And I always ask myself, when I leave a room, when I'm not in a room, what do I want others to say about me? What experience would I like them to be able to say they had interacting with me? And the word that comes to my mind constantly is radiate. I want to be able to come in and radiate and motivate and inspire and put a smile on somebody's face. And if I'm able to do that, whether personally or professionally, I feel I've done my job, but it does require me being my authentic self. And so I can't hold back, even when it may feel uncomfortable at times, and sharing a little bit more about me. At times I've realized I've had to open up a little more because it also, as Vanessa mentioned, it presents opportunities to educate. Right. And a lot of the ignorance, that frustrates us is just lack of knowledge. And so when we share a little bit here and there, it could create a whole nother opening to just be to just educate someone who just doesn't know. So I try to bring my true self to work every day and hope everyone feels good about it.
Listen, you are succeeding with your brand because you are absolutely radiating today. So that intentionality is coming all the way through. And you brought up something that is not a part of the questions I had originally that I think is really special for women of color to hear. And that's about being intentional with your personal brand. I think it is something that does deserve time for us to make space and say, how do we want people to see us as we show up? How do we get there authentically? So I'm actually going to circle back to Vanessa and ask you, what is your personal brand and how have you gone about developing it, if you've taken any measures at all?
No, great question. As I left my last company after 16 years, we did a nice goodbye Zoom. And I can tell you, there's no other place to better learn what people think about you than on something like that, right? And it helped me solidify what my personal brand is. So one is, I come off usually, maybe not on this panel, but usually it's super polished and prepared. I think people would always say, Vanessa, like whatever meeting you're in, you've thought, you've prepped, and you come off very polished and put together. So I'll take that as a positive. The second is that I drive people really hard. I have high expectations. And here's the but. Because I thought, oh man, is that a negative, right? I drive super hard expectations. 90% of the time, people said that helped them strive to reach higher goals. So I embrace both of those two pieces of my personal brand, being polished and professional and setting super high expectations for myself, but also my team. That being said, everything's a dual-edged sword. So since this is a Sistas in Sales panel, I also have heard by always being so polished and put together, people sometimes feel like they don't get to know me. They don't get to know the real me. They're like, oh, loosen up. Why do you always come so like ready? We just want to hear, and maybe, they use the word authentic, but we just want to hear you and get to know you. And I really contemplated that over the last couple of years. And I said, look, as a Black woman, sometimes we don't have the luxury to show up not prepared or not polished, etc. I think that there's some good advice for me there somewhere in the middle. But I also remind myself, hey, I can't be one of those guys, the one who shows up in the meeting, puts their foot on the desk, and when their important question that is asked, they sit back like they're thinking about the answer for the first time. On the second piece of, driving people really hard, that's something I've had to morph, to be frank, over time. I think overall it's a great brand because my leadership knows they can give me the most challenging projects and that I'm going to deliver. That being said, I've learned to have a stronger empathy chip, especially during COVID, and understanding that, hey, as much as I know I'd like to spend 2 more hours prepping for that customer meeting, someone's got a kid to pick up from school, someone's got to care for a sick relative, et cetera. So that empathy chip, I think, is something that I've really been focusing on as well, while trying to strive to deliver outsized results.
Absolutely. What I love about what you just said, Vanessa, is the piece where brands evolve, right? So just as you expect a brand, Coca-Cola wasn't who they were whenever Coca-Cola started. And, my goodness, they've had so many iterations. Also for us in our careers, there will be iterations and evolutions. And what I really like about what you said also is that you were thoughtful in how you internalized that feedback. Instead of just saying, you know what, yep, I need to make this pivot, you still grounded yourself in who you were and what ultimately made the most sense for you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Shantae, would you like to tell us more about your very, I'm going to say, authentic brand?
Yes. And I will admit that this is tough to talk about because one of the personal struggles that I've had as a leader, as a sales professional, has been perfectionism and really figuring out what is the line that I draw between what is enough and, who I am. I would say my brand, from what I hear about what my team thinks of me, is a valuable asset to the team. I am told often that I am extremely intelligent. That's one I'll always take that one. That's the one you can ever give me.
It's better than the opposite, right?
Exactly.
So absolutely.
But I'd say I think the ones that come up the most are just versatile communicator. I've been an athlete my entire life, so working with teams is my thing. I just know how to find common ground with people, and I kind of get along with everybody mostly. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who maybe don't have their own thoughts about me. That's fine. I'm not for everybody. It's just that's not life. That's not reality. But really being able to chunk things, bigger, complex thoughts or ideas down and simplifying them, being able to communicate that really effectively, and being able to kind of see things for what they are and reduce complexity. I think that's a skill of mine. That has evolved throughout my career at Salesforce. When I first started, I was a novice. I always tell people I didn't know what an API was when I first started. I was coming from medical device sales. Yeah. So everything I learned on the fly, on the job. I share, Vanessa, a lot of the preparedness piece with you. I think I bet Ayana, you do too. As a Black woman, I agree with you. You kind of have to have it. Because I never want to get caught slipping either. I have QBRs tomorrow. My manager told me, Shantae, don't spend more than 20 minutes on your deck. I'm like, okay, that's
that's cute. I'm not going to listen to that one.
There's no way I'm going to come and just put screenshots on the slide. No. I got to know my numbers, right? So, but I say that to say that those things absolutely shift and change, just like your values will shift and change. And I always find that your strengths and weaknesses there's always a really thin line between, hey, that aspect about you is great, but it also can be a huge hindrance if you continue to double click on that. And that is where my perfectionism came in. It was impeding my progress. I was not moving forward because I was so focused on everything being perfect. So,
well, and that, and sorry, don't mean to cut you off or anything, but that goes back to me, that goes back to what Vanessa was saying. So yes, it is fantastic that you drive results, but that doesn't mean your approach to it couldn't be optimized, couldn't evolve.
Absolutely.
And I hope that the women who are actually listening to this give themselves the grace to know that you don't plateau as long as you allow yourself to evolve, allow yourself to lean into what's working and make, it doesn't have to be a major pivot. It can be a minor pivot, but to help make sure that you don't just stay at that level. And so I know we're running out of time. It has been such a pleasure speaking with each and every one of you. Just to recap some of the themes we heard, it is letting your revenue speak for itself. If you perform when it comes to that revenue, you will get the influence you need to start reaching those goals that you achieve too. The other piece is be authentically you. I actually tell young people in our industry this all the time. If you can't be authentic on your team, you are on the wrong team. And the last piece, the piece we spend so much time on, is be intentional about building your brand. You're in control of your brand. You know yourself. Figure that out, and you will be able to move with authenticity. So that's what I have. I don't know if you guys have any closing remarks, but truly it's been fantastic getting to know each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.